Chapter 6, Letters 1866-67, The Lecturer, Success on the Coast in New York, The Great Ocean Excursion, by Mark Twain. It was August 13th when he reached San Francisco and wrote in his notebook, "Home again. No, not home again, in prison again, and all the wild sense of freedom gone. City seems so cramped and so dreary with toil and care and business anxieties. God help me, I wish I were at sea again." The transition from the dreamland of a becalmed sailing vessel to the dull, cheerless realities of his old life, and the uncertainties of his future depressed him, filled him with forebodings. At one moment he felt himself on the verge of suicide. The world seemed so little worthwhile. He wished to make a trip around the world, a project that required money. He contemplated making a book of his island letters and experiences, and the acceptance by Harper's Magazine of the revised version of the Hornet shipwreck story encouraged this thought. Friends urged him to embody in a lecture the picturesque aspect of Hawaiian life. The thought frightened him, but it also appealed to him strongly. He believed he could entertain an audience once he got started on the right track. As governor of the third house at Carson City, he had kept the audience in hand. Men in whom he had the utmost confidence insisted that he follow up the lecture idea and engage the largest house in the city for his purpose. The possibility of failure appalled him, but he finally agreed to the plan. In Roughing It and elsewhere has been told the story of this venture, the tale of its splendid success. He was no longer concerned now as to his immediate future. The lecture field was profitable. His audience laughed and shouted. He was learning the flavor of real success and exulting in it. With Dennis McCarthy, formerly one of the partners in the enterprise, as manager, he made a tour of California and Nevada. To Mrs. Jane Clemens and others in St. Louis. Chapter 6, Virginia City, No. 1866. All the folks' affectionate greeting. You know the flush times are past, and it has long been impossible to more than half fill the theatre here with any sort of attraction, but they filled it for me night before last. Full, dollar all over the house. I was mighty dubious about Carson, but the enclosed call and some telegrams set that all right. I lecture there tomorrow night. They offer a full house and no expense in Dayton. Go there next. Sandy Baldwin says I have made the most sweeping success of any man he knows of. I have lectured in San Francisco, Sacramento, Marysville, Grass Valley, Nevada, you bet, Red Dog, and Virginia. I am going to talk in Carson, Gold Hill, Silver City, Dayton, Washoe, San Francisco again, and again here if I have time to rehash the lecture. Then I am bound for New York, lecture on the steamer maybe. Chapter 1, 100 Leave Toast December, but I 100 telegraph you. Love to all. Chapter 1000, Arc. His lecture tour continued from October until December, a period of picturesque incident, the story of which has been recorded elsewhere. See Mark Twain, a biography by the same author. It paid him well. He could go home now without shame. Indeed, from his next letter, full of the boyish elation which always to his last years was the complement of his success, we gather that he is going home with special honors, introductions from ministers and the like to distinguished personages of the East. To Mrs. Jane Clemens and family in St. Louis. San F. de 1866. Chapter 1000. Why, dear folks, I have written to Annie and Sammy and Katie some time ago, also to the balance of you. I called on Rev. Dr. Wadsworth last night with the City College man, but he wasn't at home. I was sorry because I wanted to make his acquaintance. I am thick as thieves with the Rev. Stebbings, and I am laying for the Rev. Scudder and the Rev. Dr. Stone. I am running on preachers now altogether. I find them gay. Stebbings is a regular brick. I am taking letters of introduction to Henry Ward Beecher, Rev. Dr. Ting, and other eminent parsons in the East. Whenever anybody offers me a letter to a preacher, now I snaffle it on the spot. I shall make Rev. Dr. Bellows trot out the fast nags of the cloth for me when I get to New York. Bellows is an able, upright, and eloquent man, a man of imperial intellect and matchless power. He is Christian in the truest sense of the term, and is unquestionably a brick. Gen Drum has arrived in Philadelphia and established his headquarters there as Adjutant General. To match, Gen Meade, Carl Leonard has received a letter from him in which he offers me a complimentary benefit if I will come there. I am much obliged really, but I am afraid I shan't lecture much in the States. The China mail steamer is getting ready, and everybody says I am throwing away a fortune in not going in her. I firmly believe it myself. I sail for the States in the opposition steamer of the 5th inst, positively and without reserve. My room is already secured for me and is the choicest in the ship. I know all the officers. If Mark. We get no hint of his plans, and perhaps he had none. If his purpose was to lecture in the East, he was in no hurry to begin. Arriving in New York after an adventurous voyage, he met a number of old Californians, men who believed in him and urged him to lecture. He also received offers of newspaper engagements, and from Charles Henry Webb, who had published The Californian, which Bret Harte had edited, came the proposal to collect his published sketches, including the jumping frog story, in book form. Webb himself was in New York, and offered the sketches to several publishers, including Canton, who had once refused the frog story by omitting it from Artemus Ward's book. It seems curious that Canton should make a second mistake and refuse it again, but publishers were wary in those days, and even the newspaper success of the frog story 999 not tempt him to venture it as the title tale of a book. Webb finally declared he would publish the book himself, and Clemens, after a few weeks of New York, joined his mother and family in St. Louis, and gave himself up to a considerable period of visiting, lecturing meantime in both Hannibal and Keokuk. Fate had great matters in preparation for him. The Quaker City Mediterranean excursion, the first great ocean picnic, was announced that spring, and Mark Twain realized that it offered a possible opportunity for him to see something of the world. He wrote at once to the proprietors of the Alta California and proposed that they send him as their correspondent. To his delight, his proposition was accepted, the Alta agreeing to the $1,200 passage money and $20 each for letters. The Quaker City was not to sail until the 8th of June, but the Alta wished some preliminary letters from New York. Furthermore, Webb had the Frog book in press and would issue it May 1st. Clemens, therefore, returned to New York in April, and now once more being urged by the Californians to lecture, he 999 not refuse. Frank Fuller, formerly governor of Utah, took the matter in hand and engaged Cooper Union for the venture. He timed it for May 6th, which would be a few days after the appearance of Webb's book. Clemens was even more frightened at the prospect of this lecture than he had been in San Francisco, and with more reason, for in New York his friends were not many, and competition for public favor was very great. There are 2 letters written May 1st, one to his people and one to Bret Harte in San Francisco. That give us the situation.